Hi, I'm Amy McCready with Positive Parenting Solutions. We are the leader in online parenting education for parents of toddlers to teens. And today, we're going to talk about how to get your kids to listen without nagging, reminding, or yelling. This class is not a lot of fluff or theory. I'm going to teach you a concrete plan for consequences that you can start using right away. Everything I teach can be applied for kids ages 2.5 up to 16, and the strategies will work for all kids, including those with attention differences like ADHD and kids on the autism spectrum. If you stay to the end of the session, here's what you'll be able to do. First, understand why your kids are behaving the way they are and how your personality may contribute to their behavior. You'll also be able to use a simple 5-step process for consequences with no yelling required. And you'll know how to take the next step to become the best mom or dad in the world on a daily basis. Now, as promised, because you're here attending this session, we're going to send you the complete guide to ending backtalk battles right after this session. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Because we're streaming video, it's really important to close down other browsers, especially your email, Facebook, other social media, because they're always refreshing and they take a ton of bandwidth. If your audio or video freezes, it just means that your connection is struggling to keep up. So just hold tight for a minute until more of the video loads and then you'll rejoin us. In some browsers, however, you may need to click the play button again. If you're on your phone, I recommend that you hold your device in portrait mode up and down so you can see everything, and you may have to scroll down to get to the question box. The next thing is we're using a workbook for this session so you can customize the training for your family. I sent that link in the workbook for the workbook in the pre-class emails, and then you'll also see the link on your screen. If you don't have a workbook, just grab a notepad because I'm going to be covering a lot of strategies and I know you'll want to take good notes as we go through it. And one last note for you. You have very little free time in your day, and I'm not going to waste your time. At the same time, I don't want you to waste this hour. So be here in the moment with me, focus on the session, and if you do, this can honestly be a life-changing transformational class for you. And I'm not saying that just to be full of myself. I say it because we hear it all the time. Kylie, who attended our webinar, said, I attended your webinar last night. I want to share with you that this morning we had peace. It was wonderful. I got them to get out their plates, serve their own breakfast, clean up after themselves. They responded really well. No fighting, no TV, no problems at all. We're all ready to go on time, and it was wonderful. Thank you for your tips. I already can't remember the last time that I yelled. Isn't that awesome? Kayla said, I tried the script you said in the webinar, and bam, my daughter is buckling herself into her car seat with no tears, yelling, or bad feelings. Thank you. And Rita said, I really enjoyed your webinar last night. I put some of the suggestions to use today, and what a miracle. It's like I have brand new kids. And you can have brand new kids too with the tools in this session. This class is designed for you if you feel like you're at the end of your rope, if it feels like absolute chaos at your house, if you're constantly disappointed in yourself for yelling at your kids, if that feels like you're in the right place. And I want you to know you're with the right person. You know, they say the best instructor is the one who was just like you a few years ago. And that was absolutely me. I was at the end of my rope. My life was chaos, and I was constantly disappointed in myself for the parent that I had become. And just like you, I never imagined I would turn into that yelling mom. But timeouts and counting to 3 and reward charts were not working. And it seemed like the only way I could get my kids to listen was if I yelled. And I was trapped in this never ending cycle of asking my kids to do something and then nothing would happen. And so then I'd repeat myself and remind and repeat and remind and repeat and remind. And then eventually I would blow. But it wasn't until I yelled that they knew that I was serious. And then I was the bad guy. And that vicious cycle just happened over and over and over again. It was absolutely the worst version of myself. But I had a tipping point. It was a big time tipping point one night after I tucked my kids into bed. And as I was settling myself in for the night, I thought I was getting sick because my throat was sore. And I remember thinking, oh man, this is like the last thing that I need right now. But in the very next thought, it hit me. I was not getting sick. the reason my throat hurt is because I had been yelling so much. In fact, right before I tucked them into bed, we were having a battle about something and I lost it. So the last memory they had of me before they put their sweet little heads on the pillow was me being the big, ugly, yelling mom again. And I thought, oh my goodness, I am seriously failing at my most important job. And so that night was my tipping point when I decided I can't do this anymore. I just can't keep yelling at these people that I love more than anything. And so that's when I started studying positive parenting. And as I implemented the strategies, things really started to turn around for us. When I asked my kids to do something, they'd do it without a lot of fuss or pushback. Our morning and bedtime routines ran so much more smoothly. Things were just getting easier. I was happier, my kids were happier. It was just honestly life-changing for us. And so, with all of that, fast forward, I became certified in positive discipline. And then I used my business experience, which at that time was creating training programs for Fortune 500 companies. And I created the Positive Parenting Solutions curriculum. And I've been teaching this to parents all over the world since 2004. And I love my job so much. Today, I'm an author, I'm a parenting contributor for the Today Show, as well as lots of other national media outlets. But my superpower, if you will, is teaching you the tools so you never have to raise your voice again. My vision for you and for every parent that I work with is that you won't remember the last time you raised your voice. So just take that in for a minute. You won't remember the last time that you raised your voice. How would that feel? Of course, I can't guarantee you'll never yell because we're all human and we're going to mess up from time to time. But if you use my tools and my process, you'll have to struggle to even remember the last time you yelled because it's been so long. And as a recovering yeller myself, I will tell you that is life-changing. And I know you might think, oh, that couldn't possibly happen for me, but I promise it can. Here's how one mom describes our training. Saved my life. Beth said, I'm truly happy for the first time in over a year. Brooke, mom of 4, described our training like this: life-changing, healing, restoring. She says, I'm now the best mom in the world on a daily basis. Isn't that awesome? If that kind of change sounds good to you, grab your workbook and let's get started with this. Does that sound good? So the first thing that I want you to do in your workbook is to write down the top 3 behavior issues that you're struggling with right now. And I want you to be specific, so more than just not listening. So maybe it's backtalk or sibling rivalry or homework or technology. Think for a minute and jot down those top 3 behavior issues because we're going to be referring back to those throughout this session. Now, obviously, if you're driving and listening to me, make a mental note of those 3 behaviors. All right, so hopefully you have those 3 behaviors listed. Maybe you have 5, maybe you have more than that, I don't know. But the first thing we're going to do is try to determine the root cause of those behaviors you just listed. And everything that you learn in this session and everything that I teach in my online parenting program is based on Adlerian psychology and positive discipline. And according to Adlerian psychology, behavior is not random. There is always a reason for the behavior. And the first thing that we need to know is that all kids, and all human beings for that matter, have a hardwired need for attention and power. So think of your kids as having an attention bucket and a power bucket. Every day, they must have a sufficient dose of positive attention and emotional connection with you. And every day, they must have a sufficient dose of positive power. If your child's needs for attention and power are not met in positive ways, they'll use negative behaviors to have those needs met. They may try to get your attention by whining or clinging or acting helpless, which is totally annoying for us, but it makes perfect sense from the child's perspective. Because when she starts whining, we stop what we're doing, right? We say, now use your big girl voice. And sometimes we just give in because we can't take it 1 minute longer, right? We give in to whatever she was whining about. Fine, have the cookie before dinner, just stop whining. But in each case, she got a big hit of attention for that whining. Now, next to the behaviors that you listed in your workbook, write this down because it's really important. Kids only continue the behaviors that work for them. Kids only continue the behaviors that work for them. So if a behavior works to get that hit of attention, even if it's negative attention, it's working for the child, and you can be sure they'll use it again. So, how might the behaviors on your list be working for your child? Think about that for a minute. If you have sibling rivalry on your list, that can be a big time attention seeking behavior, because when they when they start fighting, what happens? We stop whatever we're doing, right? To find out who did what to whom. The behavior works to get our attention. All right, how many of you have some version of bedtime battles on your list? Do your kids drag out the routine forever, or another kiss, another story, another drink of water? It goes on night after night. Well, that bedtime drill works for your kids because they get your attention and they keep your attention with all of those requests. And that's why they do it night after night. For them, it's brilliant. Now, as you look at your list of your top 3 or 5 or 10 of frustrating misbehaviors, you might be thinking, I don't know, Amy, I give my kids plenty of attention. Their attention buckets are full, but we're still having these behaviors. Well, if that is the case for you, your situation has likely escalated to a power struggle, and that happens all the time. So just like your kids have an attention bucket that has to be filled every day with positive attention, they also have a power bucket that has to be filled with plenty of positive power throughout the day. Now, what do I mean by positive power? Positive power means having a sense of independence, autonomy, control over their own world. But think of life from a kid's perspective for a minute. How much control do they really have over their own world, right? Not that much, because they have us who call all the shots. Imagine what it's like to constantly have somebody telling you when to get dressed, when to go to the potty, when to do your homework, when to do chores, day in and day out. You can understand why kids don't feel like they have a whole lot of control over their own world. And this is important. Your kids' desire for power and control is not something they just decide they want, right? It is part of their wiring. The need for power is universal for little kids up to senior citizens. Even an infant will fight back if you try to hold him down and restrain him on the changing table, right? When kids don't get a sense of age-appropriate independence and control, they start to feel out of control. They start to feel helpless. And then they start acting out with negative behaviors to feel some control or power over their own lives. And that's a problem for us, right? Because do you know how kids get a sense of power or control? They do things to push your buttons, right? They try to win. They do the opposite of what you want them to do. By resisting, by pushing back, kids try to prove to us who's boss. And that's a major hit of power. All right, look again at the list of misbehaviors in your workbook. Do you have tantrums or defiance or backtalk on that list? Do those behaviors push your buttons? Well, yes, of course. Those are power behaviors. Kids get a huge hit of power when we get angry or they push our buttons. Imagine what it's like for a kid to get a big grown-up adult all bent out of shape. Big time power hit. Now, if you have younger kids, do you have mealtime, bedtime, or pottying on your list? If so, those are the 3 classic power struggles for the younger set, because in those 3 areas, your kids have legitimate power. They are in control, because no matter how much you coax or prod or beg or bribe, you can't make them eat, you can't make them sleep, and you can't make them potty. They are in charge and they know it. So it's the perfect opportunity for them to dig in their heels and prove who's really in control. Now, maybe you have bigger kid behaviors on your list, like badgering, negotiating, ignoring, eye-rolling attitude, doing the opposite of what we want them to do. Maybe it's homework or chores. If these behaviors are on your list, those are power behaviors, and it tells us we have some work to do in the power bucket department. Now, speaking of the power bucket, here's the thing that is most frustrating and the one thing that most parents never even consider, and that's this. Human beings are born with free will, right? Think about that for a minute. Human beings are born with free will. We know that intellectually, but what does it mean for your kids' behavior? Well, it means that whether your child is 18 months old or 18 years old, the decision on whether or not to behave, to listen, to cooperate, to do the right thing, it's always their choice. We think we can make our kids behave. We think we can demand compliance and make them submit to our will. And yes, you can do that temporarily, but it's never a sustainable strategy. The fact is, your people have free will. And in the end, that decision to behave, to listen, to cooperate, to do the right thing, it's always their choice. And that is so super frustrating because you're the parent. You're bigger, you're stronger, it's your house, you make the rules. But your child has free will, and in the end, it's always their choice. So, where does that leave us? Well, for most parents, it leaves us in this endless cycle of power struggles because for most parents, their go to strategies are all about making their kids behave, right? Most parents start with timeout and counting one, two, three, and that may work at first, but it's never sustainable, especially with strong willed kids. I mean, have you ever tried to keep a kid in timeout who has no intention of staying there? And what do you do when they're 13 or 14? If these strategies aren't working for you, please take comfort in knowing it is not you and it's not your kid. These tactics work against the child's need for power, against the way they're naturally wired, and that's why it feels so difficult. And that's why the child will always eventually fight back. And when they do, parents then usually resort to punishment to make their kids behave. Parents think that the threat of something really bad is going to deter that behavior from happening next time. But the opposite is actually true, and I'll explain why. First, punishment and discipline are totally different animals. From a positive discipline perspective, we define punishment as any tactic that causes the child to feel blame, shame, or pain. That could be physical or that could be emotional. Blame, shame, and pain punishment can certainly stop the behavior in the moment because the child's afraid of you, right? So basically, you force the child into submission by overpowering her with fear. But the problem is, it doesn't create long-term behavior change because when a child is exposed to blame, shame, and pain punishment, her natural reaction is to shut down. It's like a wall goes up so she can protect herself. And when that happens, there's no learning going on. The other big problem with blame, shame, and pain punishment is that it teaches kids to get really good at lying. And that makes sense because if you're a kid and you know that blame, shame, and pain is coming, of course, you're going to lie to try to get out of it. It's a perfectly reasonable response. With blame, shame, and pain punishment, we set up an environment that almost guarantees that kids will lie. And then we get furious at them for lying. It's craziness. Jane Nelson, who is the author of the Positive Discipline series, I think says it best. Where did we ever get the crazy idea that in order to make children do better, first we have to make them feel worse? No, right? Kids do better when we use strategies that give kids the power that they need within the limits that you, as the parent, feel good about. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline comes from the Latin word discipulus or disciple, which means a pupil or learner. Discipline teaches kids to make better choices in the future rather than inflicting blame, shame, and pain for making mistakes in the past. Now, let's do a quick reality check here. If you've used blame, shame, and pain punishment in the past, I don't want you to waste 1 minute feeling guilty about that. Trust me, I felt enough guilt for all of us. So before moving on, can we all just agree to let go of that guilt? Does that sound good to you? I wish I could see you, but I hope you're nodding in agreement with me because we're here to focus on new beginnings and strategies that are going to work so much better for you and your kids. Now, next up, I'm going to share a discipline strategy, not punishment, discipline, which is the no yelling formula for consequences. But I want to talk about personality for a minute because it plays a big role in your kids' behavior. Now, you may have a strong-willed or a powerful child or a laid-back child, and their personalities and their temperaments certainly play a role in their behavior. However, that's not the full story. In fact, Our personalities play a huge role in our kids' behavior. Our personalities may actually cause our kids to fight back. One of the things that we have parents do in our online training program is go through a parent personality assessment to uncover how your personality brings out certain behaviors in your kids. So for me, when I go through the assessment, my personality is like off the charts controlling. So I naturally invite power struggles for my kids. The more I want things done my way, the more I play Miss Bossy Pants, their natural reaction is to push back. It's a fight or flight response. Kids can't easily flee, so they have no choice but to fight back. Now, think about your personality for a minute, and in your workbook, make a few notes about which aspects of your personality may invite certain behaviors from your kids. Maybe you're controlling like me. What about your personality is a trigger for your kids? So take a minute and jot that down. And if there are two parents in the home, how does your partner's personality invite certain behaviors or responses from your kids? So make a note of that while I have a drink of my tea. Here's the thing. The bottom line is misbehavior is never just a kid problem. We play an equal role in that behavior, which is actually really exciting because if we can simply stop doing the things that trigger our kids, we're 50% of the way there in solving the power struggles. So if you're interested in taking that parent personality assessment, I'll share how you can do that a little bit later on, but just be thinking about that. All right, we know we want to avoid blame, shame, and pain punishment. What I want to do now is take a deep dive into just one of our 37 discipline tools, and that's our no yelling formula for consequences. Specifically, the 5 R's of fair and effective consequences. Now, this formula is appropriate for kids around the age of 2.5, all the way up to teens. Your kids have to be verbal enough to go through this process that I'm going to explain, and they have to understand basic cause and effect. If your kids are younger than that, there are different tools that we would use from the Positive Parenting Solutions toolbox. But if your kids are younger, I still encourage you to take really good notes on this process because you're going to want this formula a little bit farther down the road when they're ready. All right, so here we go with the 5 R's. The first of the 5 R's is that the consequence must be respectful. That means it wouldn't involve any blame, shame, or pain for the child. So that means that we have to deal with consequences in a calm and respectful way. And that sounds great right now, right? But in the heat of the moment, when you're angry and frustrated with your child's behavior, it's hard to keep a calm and respectful voice. At least I think so. So here's the deal. If you can't address the child's behavior in a calm and respectful way, please don't deal with it in that moment because 99% of stuff does not have to be dealt with in that moment. You can always wait 10 or 15 minutes, even if your kid has moved on to something else altogether. You can say, sweetie, let's talk about what happened a little while ago with your brother in the train tracks. You can always bring the child back to it. But if you try to deal with it when you're angry and frustrated and you're talking through gritted teeth, your child will shut down. And whatever lesson you're trying to teach is going to be lost. Now, of course, use common sense, right? If somebody is getting hurt or damaging property, you're going to have to step in and calm the situation. But wait to discuss the behavior. Wait to share the lesson until you can do it in a calm and respectful way. All right, now for the second R. I really encourage you to circle this in your workbook, put big stars around it, because it is the one that parents almost always miss. And that is that the consequence must be related to the misbehavior, right? Related to the misbehavior because we want an actual learning event to take place. And that's much more likely to happen if it's related, if it's connected in their minds. So as an example, the related consequence for not wearing a bike helmet is she doesn't get to ride her bike. It's connected. It makes sense. The related consequence for refusing to brush your teeth is you don't get to have sweets or goldfish or Gatorade or ice cream or anything else that might turn to sugar on your teeth. Because here's the reality. I can't force him to brush his teeth, at least not without a power struggle. Now, I could put him in a headlock and I can force that toothbrush in his mouth, but that's not going to end well for either one of us. So, buddy, it's up to you. If you choose to not brush your teeth, that's fine. However, we'll have to change your diet, and anything that turns to sugar on your teeth is going to be off limits. So, we put the control, the power, in the child's hands. And after a day or two of strictly vegetables and protein, he will be brushing his teeth without a battle. I promise you. Not that there's anything wrong with vegetables and protein, but I'm just telling you this really works. For older kids, if you miss curfew, then you don't get to go out with your friends the following weekend. And if you don't turn off the device when I ask, you're going to lose your gaming privileges. It's connected. It makes sense. Now, let's say I didn't turn off the video game, or excuse me, let's say you didn't turn off the video game when I asked and I said, all right, that's it. You're not going to the birthday party this weekend. How would you react? Well, you'd probably think, that's so not fair. You're so mean. And you'd be 100% right. It's not fair. It's not related. The birthday party has nothing to do with the video game issue. It's a willy-nilly consequence. It is an act of parent desperation. And we've all been there, right? Where we're just pulling consequences out of the air, taking away this, taking away that. And then pretty soon we've taken away everything, but the behavior's still happening. That's an indication that you've been using willy-nilly consequences. Now, please write this down about consequences. Again, it's so important. Your kids don't have to like the consequence, but it must feel fair. If consequences are unrelated, if they feel willy-nilly, then the anger turns on you. You become the bad guy. And at that point, your child is not taking personal responsibility for her behavior. She's not owning it. It's all about how mean you are. And then she can feel totally justified in her behavior. Bottom line, for the consequence to be effective, it must be related to the misbehavior. Now, if I can just kind of feel you're probably having this panic attack right now because you can't think of a related consequence for a particular behavior. If that's the case, let that go, right? There's no need to panic. If you can't think of an obviously related consequence, it probably means that consequences aren't the right tool for that situation. As I talked about earlier, we have lots of other tools, and I'll share where you can learn them later on. But for now, don't stress if you can't think of a related consequence. Probably means something else is better suited for that behavior. If consequences are the right tool, you'll know the obviously related consequence. All right, after respectful and related, the third R is that the consequence must be reasonable in duration. Remember, we're not trying to make our kids suffer or pay for their mistake. That would be blame, shame, and pain. Our goal is to help them learn. So to do that, the consequence only has to be reasonable. So for a 4-year-old who's throwing puzzle pieces around the room and she knows that's not okay, it would be reasonable to pack away the puzzle for the rest of the day and let her try again tomorrow. For a 14-year-old who's texting at the dinner table and she knows your family rules for technology, it would be reasonable for her to lose her phone privileges for a week. Just keep it reasonable based on the child's age and development. And keep in mind, if consequences aren't working, don't arbitrarily make them longer or more severe. If the consequence isn't working, that tells you the consequence probably wasn't structured correctly in the first place, or there are other tools that would be more appropriate for that situation. And after respectful, related to the misbehavior, and reasonable in duration, the fourth R is another make or break R, and that is that the consequence must be revealed in advance. Revealed in advance so your child has the power to make a choice between the appropriate behavior and the consequence. When she knows ahead of time what you expect and exactly what the possible consequence will be, well, then she has the power to determine how things work out for her. Remember that giving kids power doesn't mean they get their way. You're the parent. It's your job to establish the limits and the guidelines. However, within that, your child must be able to influence how things work out for her. So we want to reveal the consequence in advance and then close the loop with the fifth R, which is having the child repeat back to you her understanding of your rule and the consequence. So, sweetie, just so we're on the same page, can you repeat back to me our new rule and what the consequence will be if you choose not to follow that rule. Once she repeats back, then we have a verbal agreement. And then if I have to follow through and implement the consequence, there will be no surprises because she knew the deal, and I confirmed that by having her repeat back to me. Now, for those of you with younger kids, you can still use this process. You're just going to use very simple words and short sentences, just like you talk to them now. But as long as they're verbal enough, this process will definitely work for you. Now, I'm going to go through a script that you can use in a minute, but I want to remind you that there are 5 R's for a reason. Consequences must be respectful, related to the misbehavior, reasonable in duration, revealed in advance, and repeated back to you. If you're missing any one of those 5 R's, it will feel like blame, shame, and pain punishment to your kids. And when that happens, the anger gets turned on you, and your kids will not be taking personal responsibility. All right, next, I'm going to give you a script for how you can do the reveal in advance process to get the very best results. I'm going to use the example of technology because it's a big issue for little kids who want to play with dad's iPhone up through teenagers with their gaming and their computer time. If technology is not your issue, you can just substitute whatever the relevant topic is into this script. The key thing about revealing consequences is this. I'm not going to have this conversation when I'm annoyed and frustrated in the heat of the moment because that's going to turn it into a power struggle for sure. Instead, we'll have this chat one night, maybe after dinner or some other time when everybody is in a good and happy place. And the script would go something like this. You know, I've noticed we've been having some issues with technology lately. It seems like when I ask you to turn off the video game or the tablet, either you ignore my request or there's a lot of grumbling and groaning. And that's not okay because, of course, having technology is a privilege and there are responsibilities that go along with that. Now, notice when I've said this, I'm very calm, I have a smile on my face, and I started the conversation with, I've noticed. You know, I've noticed we've been having some issues with video games. I didn't say, you always ignore me, you never listen to me. If I'd gone down that path, I'd have a power struggle on my hands because they would have gotten defensive and they would have shut down. When you say, I've noticed, it's very disarming. So when you're talking with your kids or even your partner, try using I've noticed because it gets us in a problem-solving state of mind. And it's much more effective than you always or you never. All right, once you let them know about your concern, then you can let them know the expected behavior and be crystal clear about that. So guys, in the future, my expectation is that when I ask you to turn off the video game or shut down the technology, I expect that you're going to turn it off and without any grumbling and groaning. Now, I'll give you a 5-minute warning because I know you want to save your game, and you may want to set a timer so you know how long 5 minutes is. But I'm not going to remind you, I'm not going to give second chances. It's up to you to remember to turn it off. Let me just stop there for a minute. What do you guys think about that? Does that seem like a reasonable expectation for the privilege of having video games or technology? I think it is. And I hope you'll remember this, that TV, video games, computers, iPads, mobile phones, even old school television, those are all privileges and not rights. And so you need to be crystal clear about your expectations with those things. And if your kids aren't mature enough or aren't willing to follow the rules and the boundaries you put in place, then we know we have to make some changes. All right, let's go back to our script. I've let them know exactly what I expect in the future, but I want to cover my bases and I want to reveal a consequence. So I would say something like, now, I'm sure we won't have an issue with this, but I want to let you know that if I ask you to turn off the video game or the device and you ignore my request, or there's any grumbling or groaning or begging, please, Mom, just 5 more minutes. If there's any of that, you're going to lose your technology privileges for the next week. So where are we at this point? He is now fully informed, right? But I don't want to stop there. I want to close the loop by having the child repeat back. So just so we're on the same page, can you repeat back to me our new rule for technology and the consequence if you choose not to follow the rule? Once the child repeats back, then you know you have a verbal agreement and everybody is on the same page. Now, let me ask you a question. At this point, who will decide if she gets to keep her privileges? Who will decide? If you're saying that the child will decide, you're absolutely right. If she turns off the video game without grumbling or groaning or begging for 5 more minutes, then everybody's cool and she gets to keep her privileges. If not, she has made that choice. It's not something you've done to her, it is a choice that she's made. And if you have to follow through and implement the consequence, she can't be mad at you, she can only be mad at herself. Now, you and I both know that she'll probably be mad at you and try to take it out on you, but that's okay. That will happen as you start this process. But you know you've laid the groundwork using the 5 R's, and you can let any fussing or complaining go in one ear and right out the other. Can you see how empowering this process is for both parties? You're the parent. You establish the rules and the consequences. You have that power. But she also has the power to influence how things work out for her. That's why this is so empowering, because she has power within boundaries that you feel comfortable with. It really is a win-win. Now, let's talk about a few situations that might come up, because I want you to be prepared for anything. So what if you reveal the consequence in advance, but the child won't repeat back? What do you do? Well, if that happens, it tells you 2 really important things. First, in this example that I just gave, if he won't repeat back, that tells you that he's clearly not mature enough for the privilege of having video games or technology. And as the parent, you would be well served to pack up the video games for 3 months or 6 months until he can grow in maturity. It's not a punishment. It's simply a matter of, to enjoy certain privileges, you have to demonstrate a certain level of responsibility. It's like driving a car or anything else. The second thing it tells you, if he won't repeat back, it tells you have a whopping power struggle on your hands. And I can pretty much guarantee it's not about the video games. It's about proving to you who's really boss. And if you're having power struggles in this area, I can pretty much guarantee that you're having power struggles in other aspects of your day. Maybe it's your morning routine, bedtime, chores, homework, mealtime. Because power struggles are typically not isolated in one area. If you have them in one area, you'll likely have them in others as well. All right, here's another what if scenario. What if you reveal in advance? The child repeats back, but then he still makes a poor choice. What are you going to do? Well, first know that that's going to happen from time to time, right? Because they're kids, they're learning, and they're going to make mistakes. And when they do, you're going to keep your promise and follow through and implement the consequence. And this is important. If you're not willing to follow through and implement that consequence, please don't even put it out there. Because if you don't follow through, it's only going to prove to your kids that you're not to be taken seriously. Why should they listen to you? But you're not that kind of parent. I know that. You are going to follow through. And how you follow through makes all the difference in whether or not you have a power struggle on your hands. When you follow through, it is essential that we avoid I told you soing. I told you soing would sound like this. Well, young man, you knew our rule for video games, and you knew that if you didn't turn off the video game when I asked, you were going to lose your privileges. So don't get mad at me. You did this to yourself. Can you hear that I told you so tone in my voice? What I did was heap on a bunch of blame, shame, and pain, and I ruined a perfectly good consequence. Have you ever done the I told you soing with your kids? I think we all have, because you know what? You did tell them, and you're trying to drive that point home. But all it does is turns the anger on you, and that leaves the child perfectly justified in his behavior and his attitude. So as hard as it is, we're going to zip our lips on the I told you so's and implement the consequence with respect and dignity. All you have to say is, gosh, I see you chose to lose your video privileges, but I have confidence you'll make a better choice next time. Doesn't that sound so much better? I see you chose to lose your video privileges, but you know what, sweetie? This is a learning opportunity, and I know you'll make a better choice next time. Is he happy about the fact that he lost his video privileges? No, of course not. But he doesn't have to feel like the stupidest kid on the planet. He messed up. Let him own that with dignity and let him learn from it so he can make a better choice next time. And when we follow through, that second half of the statement is so important. I have confidence you'll make a better choice next time, or whatever words feel comfortable to you. But that allows the child to save face. Anytime we want someone to change their behavior, whether it's your child, your partner, your coworker, we have to allow them to save face. Otherwise, they get defensive, they shut down, and the anger gets turned on you. And then the learning opportunity is completely lost. All right, here's another what if that almost always comes up. What if I can't think of a good consequence? I alluded to this a little earlier, but if you can't think of a consequence that meets the 5 R's, that is respectful, related to the misbehavior, and that's clearly the hardest one, is reasonable in duration that you can reveal in advance and have the child repeat back to you, that tells you the consequences are not the right tool. If you remember anything from this session, please remember that there's no silver bullet strategy. And consequences should only be used 10 to 15% of the time when we can easily and obviously meet the 5 R's. For the other 85 to 90% of the time, it's going to be some other tool in the toolbox. If you try to use consequences for everything, trust me, you are going to have more power struggles than you bargained for. This is especially true for the big ticket power struggles like the one on the screen. For these behaviors, we wouldn't use consequences. We would use some other tool from the toolbox, or more likely, a series of tools, because very often we need more than one tool to correct a particular behavior. My husband always uses the analogy, you can't build a house with just a hammer. You need lots of different tools in your toolbox. Well, the same is true for raising kids. You can't fix the big ticket power struggles and raise kids who are respectful and responsible and capable with just one tool. It's not going to happen. Now, in a minute, I'll share how you can learn the rest of the tools in the toolbox in our online training program. But before I do, I want to share something personal with you. Earlier in the session, I suggested that the best instructor is the person who used to be you. And I don't know if this resonates with you or not, but back when I used to yell to the point of having a sore throat, I absolutely hated the person that I had become. When I'd have my adult tantrum and I'd lose it, I would actually scare my kids. And I would go to bed just feeling heartsick about yelling at these sweet little people who look up to me for everything. And my biggest fear was that my kids would look back on their childhood and remember me as the one who used to always yell at them. And when I think back on how desperate and defeated I felt back then, I am so thankful that I learned these positive parenting tools, because I honestly feel like it saved my parenting life. You know, things weren't perfect for us. Like all families, we had our moments, but when something went down, I had my toolbox. I knew what to do. I was calm and I was in control. So there was no need for me to raise my voice. And I actually liked who I was again. I was proud of myself as a mom. And so today, for me, my life's work is making sure no one goes to bed feeling heartsick like I did. My mission is to make sure your kids don't look back and remember you as the one who used to always yell at them. So for you, if you ever go to bed feeling heartsick like I did, if you don't like the person you've become, I promise you can transform your parenting if you have the right tools and the support, and that's what I can help you with in our online mentoring program. The Positive Parenting Solutions program gives parents anywhere, on any budget, under any schedule, the power to transform their families and become the parents they've always wanted to be. Andrea, who is a mom in our program, posted this in our private community. Today, it's been 7 days since I yelled at my children. I know I still have so many things to improve on, but I didn't go to bed one night this week feeling that I had screamed at my kiddos all day, and it's amazing how much better I slept. Ella, also in our community, said, day 18 of me not yelling at all at the kids, especially my son who'll be 5 in May. Things have been so good. It's not to say there are no challenges, but we are a much happier family now. From a yeller with a sore throat every day to a recovering yeller with 18 days since the last time I yelled, you can do it. And I know that probably sounds too good to be true at this point, but I promise moments like this happen all the time in our community. So let me share how you can get those same results. And what I'm going to do is quickly explain explain our online training program and invite you to join us. And then I'm going to answer questions. So the Positive Parenting Solutions class is 100% online. It's video-based. It is self-paced. It is designed for busy parents to get quick results in as little as 10 minutes a day. The cornerstone of the course is the toolbox with 37 tools or discipline strategies. And these are very specific, battle-tested discipline strategies, not fluffy classroom theory. I will teach you how to use the tools in our on-demand training videos. The videos are quick and easy. They're like 5 to 15 minutes each with word-for-word scripts that you can depend on even in the heat of the moment, in the tantrums, during the fights, or when you are completely and totally frustrated. The session workbooks are going to help you customize those tools specifically for your family. The parent personality assessment that I talked about earlier, that's going to uncover how your personality triggers your kids. And if you can just stop doing those things, you'll be 50% of the way to success before even adding any of the new tools. It is a game changer. And you and your partner can both go through that assessment individually. You'll also have more than 25 advanced training modules, and these are for the most stressful parenting challenges. So whether it's bedtime battles, morning dawdling, chores, homework, mealtime, bullying, ADHD, anxiety, getting your partner on the same parenting page, you'll have a roadmap for all of those big ticket power struggles. And as you look at the list of topics of those advanced modules, you may be thinking, well, I don't need every one of those right now. But you may in 6 months or 2 years or 10 years. And that's why we give you lifetime access. So this is your roadmap for whatever you're facing right now up through the teen years. This will be the last parenting resource that you'll ever need. Now, the course is self-paced, but you don't have to go it alone. So when things get tough, you can get one-on-one help from me in our Ask Amy group coaching calls. You can join the Ask Amy calls as often as you'd like for an entire year, and you'll get personalized advice from me in real time, and you'll learn from the action plans that I share with other parents on the call. If you can't get on a live call, the coaching calls are also broadcast via Facebook Live in our private community, so you can go back and watch those later. And there's also a library of years of recorded coaching calls, and you'll have access to all of those. You can search for them by topic for whatever issue you're struggling with. You'll also have 24/7 access to our private Facebook community. These parents have been in your shoes, and like you, they're committed to raising their kids in healthy, positive ways, and they will wrap their arms around you and they will support you every step of the way. Now, I know that's a whole lot of resources, so what I want to do is just simplify things and break it down for you into our 3 levels of enrollment, which are bronze, silver, and gold. So don't even worry about bronze because I'm going to give you an invitation to get a free upgrade to the next level when you enroll. So let's start with what's covered in the silver enrollment. When you enroll at the silver level, you'll have 24/7 immediate access to the 37 discipline tools in the toolbox, the 49 on-demand training videos where I teach you how to use the tools, the customizable workbooks for every session, the parent personality assessment, the 25 advanced training modules, and we're always adding new ones to that list. You'll have lifetime access and our interactive mobile app for learning in your car, in waiting rooms, wherever you are on the run, you'll have the course with you. Gold members enjoy everything in silver that I just mentioned, plus you'll have offline course access. So you can download the sessions right to your device and listen without Wi-Fi and without data charges. You'll have the Ask Amy group coaching calls for a full year as often as you'd like. You'll have lifetime access to our library of recorded Ask Amy coaching calls and 24/7 private access to our gold members only Facebook community. And all of these, everything in gold and silver are listed in your workbook as well. Now, I mentioned a special invitation because you're here in this session and I know you want to start seeing results now. So we invite you to take advantage of a 10% discount and a free upgrade to the next level for anyone who enrolls in the next 24 hours. So the way it works is you can pay 10% off the bronze price, and get a free upgrade to silver, which that works out to $12 payments of $19.99, or you can make one payment of $199, and that pricing is in US dollars. Or you can pay 10% off the silver price and get an automatic upgrade to gold. And the price on that would be 12 payments of $24.99. Or one payment of $249. Again, in US dollars. Once you pay for the course, you'll never be charged again, and you'll have lifetime access. The course is also backed by our 100% 30-day happiness guarantee. So if for any reason you're not happy with the improvement in your parenting, we'll refund your money, no questions asked. So to enroll, it's super easy. Just click on the Get Started Now button on your screen. Mobile users, you may have to scroll down or hold your phone up and down in portrait mode to see that. When you click on the button, that'll take you to the pricing page. Once you're on our pricing page, scroll down and click here to get to the 10% off the bronze price and the free upgrade to silver, or click here to get the free upgrade to gold. And that upgrade will happen automatically for you. Then pick your payment choice, one payment or 12 smaller payments. With either plan, you'll have access to everything immediately. And then enter the coupon code, which is on your screen right now. And you may want to write down that coupon code so you don't forget. Then enter your credit card information, and you'll be ready to log in and start learning. You'll have access to everything immediately. So if you have questions on the pricing or how to enroll, just email us at info@positiveparentingsolutions.com, and somebody from our team will get back to you right away. Now, I'm going to answer the questions that were submitted in just a minute, but let's quickly talk about the two most common questions or concerns that parents have about enrolling in our program. The first one is, how do I know if this is really going to work? And I totally get that, because at this point, you probably feel like you've tried everything. How's this going to be any different? Well, here's what I know for sure. Positive Parenting Solutions has been in business for 12 years, and that is a crazy long time in the online world. 5 years before that, I taught this program in churches, schools, and YMCAs. We've trained more than 75,000 parents on 6 continents. At Today's Show Parenting parenting contributor and a contributor for many other national media outlets, you can feel confident that my process is tested and it is trusted by families all over the world. But all of that is not nearly as important as what parents just like you say. Parents in our program honestly rave about their results all the time. Randy said, Amy McCready, part of your side effects of your program, if listed, should include may cause children to do things around the house without asking. Hoops and miles have been jumped these last few months. I'm so happy I trusted this program. And this was a video that one of our moms sent in. I wish I could show you the whole thing because it was so awesome. But she said, to Amy from my daughter, what did you do to my mom? She's fun now. And of course, you can see that it also works for teens as well. April said, I feel like a total winner tonight. My kids were in bed and asleep by 8:30 with no crying, no fighting, and no meltdowns. This is my second week doing PPS, and I just finished module 4. I've noticed a huge change in my kids and in myself as well. I don't yell at them like I used to, and the talking back and arguing with me is almost zero. Allie said, one of a million reasons I love this program. What would have been a 2-hour tantrum with intense yelling, my 4-year-old hitting me and slamming doors, is now 5 minutes of self-controlled big feelings that we work through together, followed by understanding his choices, accepting the consequence, and learning and growing from the experience. I am truly amazed by PPS. Aaron said, our son with autism has struggled with aggression towards us, a lot out of frustration. We started this program last month and have only implemented MBST, one of our tools so far. I can't remember the last time our son was aggressive with us since then. Very grateful. And again, we have lots of parents in our program who have kids with ADHD, are on the autism spectrum and a number of other differences as well. Crystal said, I'm sure you get this all the time, but a heartfelt thank you. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, but despite my years of education, was really, really struggling with the day-to-day challenges of parenting. Your course has changed my life in 2 to 3 weeks, and I'm a walking billboard for positive parenting solutions. Just said, my girls completely turned around in just a week. And even my mom commented on how pleasant they were to be around. You guys, I could even take my 5- and 7-year-old grocery shopping with me, and there were no issues. We actually had an enjoyable time in public. We hear success stories like these every single day from parents. I'll send you a link and you can read their stories and success stories for yourself. But I'll also say the only way you'll know if it'll work for your family is to try it yourself. And that's why we have the 30-day 100% happiness guarantee. You have nothing to lose by at least trying it and see the changes in your own family. Now, the other concern you may have is, I'm not sure I can afford this. And let me start by saying this. If spending the $19 a month is going to prevent you from putting food on the table, please don't consider this. That's why we offer this free training to get you started. But for the rest of you, you heard what parents say about the transformation, and I encourage you to think about the consequences of not doing this program. If you really are at the end of your rope, how much longer are you willing to yell? How many more nights do you want to go to bed feeling heartsick? How bad do things have to get before you say, okay, I'm ready to invest the $19 or $24 a month to finally feel happy again in my parenting? I'll bet we all spend $19 at the grocery store for stuff that isn't nearly as important to your family as this course would be. Cutting $5 a week from the grocery budget or some other place is totally doable if you're finally ready to say, that's it, I'm doing this for me and my family. And keep in mind, you can pay for the course over 12 months, but you're going to have lifetime access. So how old are your kids now? You will be using this course until they leave for college, I promise you. It is the best investment and the best value you'll make for your family. Please know I am 100% committed to helping you achieve the vision. Very soon, you won't even remember the last time you raised your voice. As Brooke says, I'm now the best mom in the world on a daily basis. That is life-changing. I want your kids to look back and remember you as the calm, loving, patient parent you know you can be. So whatever questions you have about the course, email us at info@positiveparentingsolutions.com. Someone from our team will get back to you. Now, let's get to some of those questions that have been submitted. I need to move things around on my screen a little bit. All right, so 1 minute. Hang on. Okay, there was a question about getting a recording of this class. Yes, absolutely. We're going to send you a recording of this class about an hour after the class ends and the recording is processed. So look for that in your email. All right. We have a question from Misty, and she asked, you said you don't have to deal with the situation in the moment, but what do you do if they are hurting a sibling or damaging property? Okay, so if someone is getting hurt or property is being damaged, yes, you must step in and diffuse the situation. We don't want somebody getting hurt. And you can do that by saying, wow, looks like you guys are having a really hard time getting along now. Let's take a break and we can get back together and talk about this when everybody's calmed down. Notice I didn't talk about who did what to whom, right? This is not the time when everybody's upset. That's not going to go well. You know, if you're frustrated and angry or they're upset, it's only going to end up in a giant power struggle. So wait until everyone is calm. Then you can revisit the situation, and then you can work on strategies to help your kids be more successful in the future. All right. Jasmine asked, you said consequences should be revealed in advance. What if something happens out of the blue and I haven't revealed a consequence? Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up because I should have covered this. So, Jasmine, you're right. We always want to reveal consequences in advance so kids can make a choice between the appropriate behavior and the consequence. However, and please write this down, consequences are for repeated misbehaviors, not for a one-off event. All right. So the first time a behavior happens, you don't issue a consequence. That's your training opportunity. So when everybody is calm, your focus is on training. So you talk about why the behavior was not okay, what you expect in the future. You can role play the redo so they can practice a more appropriate response. That's especially effective with younger kids. Have them practice the more acceptable alternative behavior. And then if you think that behavior could happen again, you can reveal a consequence for the future. But the first time a behavior happens, that's always your training opportunity. All right, remember we're talking about discipline, which again comes from the Latin root discipulus or disciple, which means a pupil or learner. So we're always teaching our kids for the future. All right, next question is from Desiree. What about misbehavior at school? What is the right consequence? Okay, this is a really important question too. If your child has an issue at school, and school deals with it, there's no need to give a consequence at home. All right, let me repeat that. There is no need to give a consequence at home. Parents understandably get very panicky when they get a bad report from school. And in their panic, they usually result to willy-nilly unrelated consequences, right? They start taking away every privilege imaginable. The problem with that is it doesn't help the child be more successful in the classroom. Right? It doesn't teach the kid to do anything differently in the future. Most of the time, when kids have difficulty in school, it's usually because of a lack of impulse control. They're not willfully trying to be difficult. So our job at home is to first create a safe place for the truth. Otherwise, your kid will either not tell you what happened or they'll totally shut down when you try to talk about it. So first, show empathy. Wow, that must have been really difficult for you. Or, wow, that probably felt embarrassing, because you know what? It was hard for your child. So we need to connect with them on an emotional level and let them know that we get it, we understand. And then our job is training. So practice that redo. Buddy, if that happened again tomorrow at school, what could you do differently? Our job at home is to help our kids with skills or strategies to be more successful. And please let the teacher know that that's how you're handling it. Again, discipline always starts with training. All right, next one. Claire asked, my one son has been diagnosed with ADHD and my other son is on the autism spectrum. Will these tools work? And Claire, the answer is yes. We have lots of parents in our program who have children with attention differences, social differences, learning differences, sensory differences. And the tools in this course are your foundation tools, and they can be used for all children. Depending on your child's specific needs, he may require additional therapies or interventions. But even if you have other therapies or interventions in place, these foundation tools are so critical. That way, your specialist can isolate whether a troubling issue is a result of his difference, or is it just something behavioral that we can totally fix with the tools in the toolbox. We always start with those foundation tools for all kids. And Claire, we do have an advanced module called ADHD 101. My encouragement to you would be to go ahead and enroll and see what you think. I want this to be a good fit for you. If for any reason the course is not meeting your needs, you can request a full refund within 30 days. That's no problem. Also, be sure whether your child has ADHD or is on the autism spectrum, please be sure to connect with other parents in the Gold Members Only Facebook page, because there are a lot of families there in situations just like yours. And again, they will wrap their arms around you, support you, and guide you as you go through this process. Okay, Rosemary, what about if kids have a tantrum when you implement the consequence? Probably everybody's wondering that question, right? Well, that may happen particularly as you start this process, because your kids are accustomed to certain responses from you. They're used to pushing your buttons in certain ways. And so when you change your response and you're using more effective tools from the toolbox, you may have some pushback at first, and that's totally normal. And I'm sure you know, there are different types of tantrums and they're handled differently. There are the types of tantrums that we call manipulative tantrums, and that's in which the child deliberately throws a fit because he's not happy or he's not getting his way. It's a very deliberate type of tantrum. And then there are the tantrums that come from kids just not having the emotional control or the skills to manage their big emotions. These types of tantrums are handled differently, and I can spend more than an hour just on tantrums. But rest assured, if you are enrolled in our course, you will know how to tell the difference between the types of tantrums, and you'll have the tools to handle any pushback that you get from those. Okay, next question is from Nisha. What if both parents are not on the same page? Will the tools work? Okay, the answer is yes. And I'll tell you, we have this situation all the time. If your partner isn't willing to try some of the tools, the program will still work for you. Because as you start using the tools, your child will respond differently to you. She'll start being more cooperative and easygoing. The energy in your family will shift and it'll be more positive, and your partner will see that. And hopefully, they'll be more open to trying the tools. That happens all the time. Also, the videos themselves are designed in quick little bite-sized chunks. So you can ask your partner to just watch this quick video on chores or on a tool to handle back talk. When they hear the tools and they hear the scripts and they have the examples to back up the tools, not from you, but from me, the objective third party, they're much more likely to be receptive. The other thing is we have an awesome advanced module on this exact topic. It's called How to Get Your Partner on the Same Parenting Page, and it is phenomenal. So I definitely recommend that you go through that. Also, after this session, I'm going to send you a script or those talking points that you can use to discuss this class with your partner. The bottom line is you're not going to badger or try to convince your partner to use these tools. The tools working and the results that you get are going to speak for themselves and are going to make your partner more open to using them. It happens all the time. All right, this next question is from Darcy. What is the right consequence for kids fighting with each other? It seems like they fight constantly over every little thing. All right. So sibling rivalry is one of those behaviors in which we need much more than consequences, because there are so many underlying issues with sibling rivalry. There's birth order, has a huge effect on sibling rivalry. Your personality priority, we talked about that. How we parents totally escalate the competition between our kids without even realizing it. And then a really big part is a lack of skills on the part of your kids, right? Conflict resolution is a really advanced skill. We get frustrated with kids because they can't work it out, but you probably know adults who aren't that great at conflict resolution. It's hard. In session 5, plus in several of our advanced modules, you'll learn what you're doing to escalate the competition between your kids. Again, if we just stop doing those things, you're already making big progress. Also, you'll learn what to do and not do in the heat of the fight. You'll learn how to prevent future fights. You'll learn how to deal with sibling bullying. It's very, very common. You'll learn how to help kids deal with their big, angry emotions. That's a big skill deficit for a lot of kids, and we can help you with that. And most importantly, you're going to stop playing referee because your kids are going to be learning the skills to resolve the conflict on their own. And let me tell you, that is worth the price of admission right there. I always say that your child's spouse is going to totally thank you for taking this course, because these are skills that they're going to be learning into adulthood. They're going to be using into adulthood. All right, Caitlin says, can you explain how the coaching works? All right, so Caitlin, if you choose the complimentary upgrade to Gold, you'll have unlimited access to the Ask Amy group coaching calls for a full year. Those calls are during the week, on weekends, daytime, evening, we have parents all over the world in our program, and so we accommodate time zones around the world. If you can't make a live call, you can watch it after the fact via Facebook Live in our Gold Members Only community. And of course, you have the library of years of recorded coaching calls, and you can search those by topic. So parents love the Ask Amy coaching calls. Again, you're going to get a step-by-step plan for your issue, but you're also going to learn from all the questions that other parents ask. So I think you'll really love those. All right, Meredith wants to know, do you cover back talk in the course? Yes, we do, because it's an issue with little kids all the way up to big kids. And the one thing I'll tell you about back talk is that we are 50% of the problem. So again, that personality assessment is going to be huge. There will be things that you'll need to do differently. And there'll be tools that you'll really want to especially focus on depending on your personality assessment. But whether it's back talk or any other power struggle you're dealing with, one of the things that I always tell parents, and this is going to sound a little crazy counterintuitive, is that the more that you use the tools, the less you'll need the tools. And what I mean by that is when you start implementing the very first tool in session 1, you're going to see results almost immediately within the first 1 or 2 days. Your kids are going to become more cooperative, more easygoing. Things are going to start getting easier for you. As you implement each new tool, you'll continue to see even better results. The more you use the tools, the energy will get even better and more positive. Your kids will become more cooperative and agreeable, because when you're meeting their needs for attention and power in positive ways with the tools in this course, they don't have the need to act out to get that attention and power in negative ways. They don't have the need to fight you on every little thing. And so what happens is that it transitions from feeling like everything is a power struggle to your kids doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, because their internal compass is directing them. So when I say the more you use the tools, the less you need them, the less you need the consequences or the corrective tools. For parents who are in our program, they get to the point where they hardly ever use consequences, not because their kids are perfect, but they just don't need those corrective tools, and you'll be the exact same way. Remember that vision that we talked about, that very soon you won't remember the last time that you raised your voice. That can absolutely be your reality, and I would love to help you make that happen. And this is probably a good time to go back to kind of what I talked about before. If you're ready to go to bed feeling like the best mom or dad in the world on a daily basis, let's do this together. Click on the Get Started Now button, and you can enroll with the upgrade to silver or gold, and you can dig in and start learning these tools. If you have any questions about this, feel free to email us at info@positiveparentingsolutions.com. If you still have behavior-related questions, certainly we can talk about those on an Ask Amy group coaching call. The tools in the course are going to help you dig into solving all of those. Do remember to look at your email for that Back Talk Battles report, also for the recording of this class. Feel free to share that with your partner. And I want to leave you with a thank you. Thank you for being here in this session. Thank you for investing the time to do this hard work. It says volumes about the kind of parent that you are. It would be such a privilege to help you become a recovering yeller and experiencing the kind of results that parents in our program get on a daily basis. So for those of you who are already enrolled, thank you. I cannot wait to hear about your progress. Thank you to everyone for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the course.